Janae and Charlie, is it okay? We're going to go ahead and get started. Okay, we are being recorded right now. And I want to welcome everyone to the ACT conference. Thank you for selecting this workshop. This workshop session is called Innovation Through Collaboration in the Time of Distant Learning. We want to let you know that this workshop is being recorded, and I am very pleased to introduce your speakers, Janae Mitchell and Charlie Skidmore, who will be your facilitators for this session. We'll be dropping the workshop evaluation into the chat just a few minutes before the workshop concludes. With that in mind, I'd like to go ahead and turn this over to Janae and Charlie.
Awesome, thank you so much, Ken. Again, if you just joined, thank you for taking the time out to be a collaborator in this space, be a learner, and most importantly, be engaged. So inviting you all to turn on your cameras if you feel comfortable, but again, acknowledging what today has been and what the rest of this week will be. So if you need to keep your cameras off, that is perfectly fine. We are starting a little bit behind, as you can see, so I'm going to move really quickly. Please feel free to use the chat if you have any questions. Myself and Ken will be keeping our eye on it, as well as Charlie, and trying to address any questions or clarifications you might have or need. So generally, I like to do norming in the spaces that I facilitate. However, again, because of a lack of time, we're just going to really quickly move through because there's a lot of information, and I want to make sure that I can get as much to you as possible and that we take enough time for you all to ask our amazing panelists who have joined us any questions about their experiences collaborating and engaging external partners. So after our objectives, I'm going to pass it to Charlie. He is going to go over the new Cassell wheel, which is a really important integration or a really important aspect of the work that we're doing, that we're integrating into all of our spaces. Then we're going to move into the key strategies that you all can use when building out a partnership. And this, I will say, is where I'm going to move quickly because it's a lot of information, but I will also pop some resources into the chat that you all can go through afterwards. We'll also talk about some potential pitfalls, and then we'll get to the meat of this session, which is our panel discussion. Afterwards, we're going to teach you a piece of Citizen Schools culture, which is a teach back. I hope that I got that information to Scott in enough time so that you all can use it for the game. However, if I did not, it just might be a nice little piece of our culture that you can build into your programs. So our objectives for today. By the end of this session, my goal, Charlie's goal, our panelists' goal is that you are able to effectively engage and build quality partnerships and relationships with both your community as well as any organizations, any corporations that you feel like are aligned with your mission and vision and that would support your work and that you can leverage. We're going to give you some strategies that you can use for decision making in terms of developing a curriculum that is really high quality as far as academic content is concerned, as well as social emotional skill development is concerned, and has an emphasis of college and career orientation because that is the bread and butter of what Citizen Schools does. The last thing is just having a better understanding of potential pitfalls of external partnerships because it's difficult. I think communication in general is difficult for all of us, whether it be with your colleagues, your friends, your peers, our family. It's one of the most important tasks that we face in our daily lives. And so this session, we also want to end with a feeling where we can give someone honest, tactful feedback, although it's extremely challenging, that will help leverage the work that we're doing and that will help create an honest and really well-functioning relationship and partnership. So at this point, I'm going to pass it over to Charlie, and he's going to go over the new Cassell wheel.
Thanks so much, Janae. I always love it when the fates intervene. When Janae and I were planning this workshop, and we know how excited we are about community collaboration, I didn't know what kind of scholarship I would reach out to. And sure enough, on just about 3 or 4 weeks ago, into my email comes, CASEL has reinvented its wheel. And before, communities was just part of families and caregivers. And now they are really highlighting communities. And that's what we're talking about collaboration here, is really making use of community partnerships. I do want to say too that because the Cassell wheels are concentric, but they're not meant to say the community is the fourth. It really is that everything is a wraparound for our students. At Citizen Schools, we always say equity begins with opportunity. And so our whole focus on partnership is to create more opportunities for our students. We reach out and look for partners. Now, we're a partner organization too, Citizen Schools, but we also broker other partnerships because we know that those folks will have additional supports and services. What I like so much about hearing Dr. Ginwright this morning was when he was talking about a sense of agency. Most of our partnerships are about some kind of focus on a career pathway. And that is exactly where our students begin to say, we work with middle school only. I was a high school person my whole career. I was a principal in the Boston Public Schools before I moved to California. I was even afraid when I took on this job that middle school is too young, but it isn't at all. It is the right time for students to be thinking about what they do want to do. We do apprenticeships where they do 4 during the year in different career pathways. And in addition to finding what they do want to do, our students can walk away from our program thinking, I don't want to do that. And that's a valuable experience when you think of how many of us have started down a pathway only to find out when we're much too old that we don't want to do that kind of thing. So I'm excited that CASEL is really saying community partnerships that are authentic, that bring aligned learning opportunities are the way to go. And in our work in Citizen Schools, that's definitely what we found. We want to show you a quick video, focuses on one student. I think you'll just see how important the collaboration with an organization like Citizen School and then the apprenticeships, what a difference it makes on students' lives.
Thank you, Charlie. I'll also just say that in this new virtual world, it's more important than ever for us to find solutions to maintain sanity during the barrage of Zoom calls. So collaboration, engaging other partners allows us to leverage both our strengths while extending our reach through other strengths or areas of focus. So we're going to play a quick video, and it's just going to show you our scholars and how they engage with the multitude of community partners in a schoolhouse.
My mom's middle name is Elizabeth, and they got Ellie that from there. And my dad's middle name is Anelvi, and that's how they got named. That's what they named me.
Elineide es una muchacha muy buena. Gracias a Dios no tengo quejas con ella. Me ha salido muy buena estudiosa.
The first time I met Ellie, I called her Eli because I didn't have a face to a name. So I said, Eli. She was like, no, it's Ellie. So that was my first interaction with her.
I went to school at Orchard Gardens.
From what I would hear, students were walking around the hallways. It was noisy, it was loud.
We never had sports. Nobody stayed after school. Nobody asked for help.
You're really gonna make a school successful and make kids successful for the long term. The limited resources of a school staff is just not enough to make that happen. You need to enter into a partnership with an organization where you really believe in the mission and vision of that organization. Citizen Schools brings a whole lot to the table for our kids. I was a first year teaching fellow and I didn't know what to expect. It was all 19 of us in the same room, Monday through Thursday, making it happen.
They were really happy and eager. They talked one-on-one with us and actually know who we are.
They knew that we were there for them and that we wanted to have fun with them, we wanted to smile with them. We were also meant business.
Mr. Ryan, él ayudó bastante, siempre estaba ahí como encima de ella, siempre ayudándola, ayudando a sus tareas.
Success isn't just about a score on a test. Success is about how you apply that throughout your life. They get through citizen schools not only an expectation and an accountability for rigorous work, but then during your apprenticeship, you get to apply everything you're learning to something that really interests you and intrigues you.
It's not the same as a teacher teaching me about lawyer stuff. It's like an actual lawyer. At a point, I actually wanted to be a lawyer because I like arguing. I like defending my point.
Sitting in a math class and doing an algebra problem, connecting that, and then saying, I'm going to make a video game using that knowledge, that's huge.
It's that link. That's what an extended day is about. It's about bringing the world to life for the kids. I think 8th Grade Academy does it with writing.
I signed up to be a coach with HEA because I wanted to be able to do something, I guess, to give back, to use Ellie's words. The ultimate goal of the program is to write an essay that will be published in Bridging Magazine at the end of the school year.
You need to present who you are in writing to get into the high school that you want, to get to college and be successful in college.
She got into John D. O'Brien High School, and we were walking to the law firm one day. Ellie was like, Mister, I don't want to go to O'Brien.
I was really nervous. I was scared. High school is really different from middle school. They're not gonna sit there and hold your hand.
I get it. Just think about this. You know, you are the only student in 8th grade who got into this amazing school. I'm gonna let you just think about it. You know, I think a few weeks later, she came back. She's like, okay, I'm gonna do it. I need to grow up. It's the right thing to do. And that made me very happy.
A lot of people working together can accomplish great things.
College is a big step towards my future and will get me closer to achieving my dream of being a dance teacher.
I'd like to come back to Orchard Gardens and teach because my former teachers inspired me and I want to inspire young kids.
She matured right in front of my eyes, I think.
I know if I push myself and do what is right, I will make it there. And I really believed her when she said all this stuff. I could see her doing all of it.
I'm really thankful that I was given, you know, unknowingly this opportunity to work with a student who really bettered who I was and bettered me as a, you know, a professional, bettered me as a person who wants to stay in education. What do you think?
That almost made me cry because they were saying good things. And I was just like, I didn't know. You never know when you do something good until somebody tells you. You don't really you just do it. It's just part of nature, basically.
Okay, thank you all. I'm gonna pause this before it plays again. So in this video, you see Ellie, but you see Ellie and you see all of the work that she's doing to make her life a better life, but you also see the team of adults surrounding her and wrapping around her to engage her in different experiences and different career opportunities to push her when she's not feeling as though she can do something. And so this is really the magic of the work of innovating in a program, right? In bringing in community partners in a program. You get to see that the lawyer that helped her is just an individual that Citizens was brought in that wanted to give back and that wanted to engage. It's not this drawn-out process, but it takes.
Janae, I don't mean to interrupt. I believe your voice is getting lighter. It's very difficult to hear it. Is there a volume you can turn up?
Yeah, no one can hear you, Janae.
Okay, you can hear me now? Awesome. Apologies, you all. So I just wanted to show
That's not better, Janae.
It's still far away. You sound far away, Janae.
Just do it in sign language.
I think I will just jump in for a second and then we can move on. I think what touches me about this is that Ellie was obviously a strong student, but her, what we call the first shift teachers, her regular school teachers weren't bringing that together. And what we're saying is partnerships that align around a lot of what Dr. Ginwright was talking about this morning. Agency, culture can do that, can take a student from that I'm okay at school to I'm confident about what I'm doing. I'm ready to go to an exam school. I'm ready to make a career choice. And that's what we want to really bring to you about the opportunities and partnerships. But what you'll hear in our panel discussion is how you have to be so careful about creating them. They don't just form because you found somebody who's willing to work with kids.
Okay, I don't know if you all can hear me now. I'm really hoping that you can.
We hear you. It's just really far away.
Jeez. Oh, put it up again. Okay, can you hear me now?
Sorry,
It's the
Janae.
same.
And
It might have been the effect of the video.
okay, I apologize.
It's
You
getting
all.
better.
That's better.
Better?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna stick here. I'm not gonna move. I'm gonna stay right here, you all. Okay, so now we're gonna jump into the building blocks of collaboration. And this is that piece where I said it's really a lot of information. When you go to build a community partnership, when you go to build a corporate partnership, there are a lot of steps that you're going to want to take to make sure that when you actually go to engage your scholars, engage your community with these people, that they have that shared vision. The division of roles and responsibilities is clear. There's effective communication. I think most importantly, though, that there's a cultural awareness and that there is also a want, a desire to understand the community that you are serving and to respect the community that you're serving. So that's just one piece, but we're going to jump into the real meat of it. So I'm going to go step by step, and I'm just going to give a little bit of information around how you can engage in each step and how you can strategize in each step. So the first thing is just determining the needs and the readiness of your community. So as suggested in the Castle Wheel, the importance of collaborating between schools, between parents, partner organizations, the community and corporate partners denotes a need for collaboration. But organizations may have very different reasons for wanting to partner. So you may have a small voluntary organization that needs to partner in order to gain skills and capacity to carry out the work that they want to do. Or you may have a larger organization that requires mentors to help them grow and learn in the work that they're doing. You may also have corporations that have no knowledge of the community that they want to come in and serve, but they'd be of a value to that community in some capacity. So it's a matter of determining what the needs are, determining your readiness, because you don't want to jump into a partnership if you don't have all of the pieces in place to make sure that it's going to be successful. After you've determined your need, you are going to recruit the right people, the right organization. So that goes back to what I just said, making sure that there's that shared vision and discussing with potential partners what type of partnership you want. So one of the resources I'll be providing for you after this is a pretty thick handbook of just how to go about partnership development. But what you will see in it is that there are 3 models that they focus in on. The cooperative model, which is where each partnership maintains their own decision-making responsibility. You're pretty autonomous. The collaborative model, and that is where the decision-making is shared, the accountability is shared. There's resources that each organization is contributing to the space. And then you'll also have the integrated model. And the integrated model is where some of those pitfalls start to show their face because decision-making is transferred between both parties. You are administrating policies and procedures that both parties agree upon, and you're surrendering quite a bit of accountability. So in that recruiting the right people and organization step, it's really important that you're gathering as much information as possible, but that you're also dialoguing within your organization about the information you've gathered, as well as with those potential partners, to try to garner like what the commitment for agreeing to that partnership might be. So that's 2 steps right there. we have quite a few left. And again, those 2 steps, that was just a really quick snippet as to how to start strategizing around them. But there's, again, you will see in that handbook a lot that goes into each of those steps. So the next thing is just assessing resources needed and developing the systems and structures for the partnership. So that resources piece, I think we can all relate to if you're a part of a nonprofit, if you work in a schoolhouse, if you work in the education sphere at all. Resources are really spread thin right now, especially during the pandemic. So being able to find a partner where you can kind of share those resources. Again, like I said in that first step, if there's a corporation that has professional development that can support your staff and their skill gaps or their competency gaps, that's an awesome resource that you might want to add to the structure of your partnership. Are staff employed by the partner organization well trained? Again, are they culturally competent? If not, does the organization have the infrastructure and people power to ensure that their staff will get there prior to partnering with you? You're also going to want to identify barriers that might be a risk for success. So with one of our partners, we partner with Oakland Lacrosse, and our scholars have to go to different schools across the city of Oakland. In planning our partnership with them, something we needed to think about was whether or not and how our scholars were going to get that transportation from one program to the next. Did that partner organization provide that transportation? Did they have a fee associated with their program? All things you've got to think about when trying to garner resources and trying to assess resources and develop what the structures are going to be in your partnership. Another step in this building block is developing a communication strategy. And that goes back to the very beginning of this session. Communication is hard for all of us, whether it be direct verbal communication, whether it be the way that I use my hands a lot, so our body language and how people perceive that. You're going to want to have steps and strategies to ensure that when you're communicating with your partner organization and they're communicating with you and your staff, that respect is there, the clarity is there, and that if a situation arises that may strain communication or strain the relationship and trust, you have ways to go about rectifying that, right? You have ways to give one another feedback and ways to assess the quality of your work through communication. So it's also important to learn to request the opportunity to give feedback. I think feedback can be something that we're not all the times comfortable with. I think conflict is something that arises at times when we give feedback, but conflict is something we've got to be comfortable with, because with conflict, we grow and we learn. And so in whatever partnership you are starting to build out, you want to make sure that communication is, and again, I have it right there on the slide, that communication is effective, that it's clear, and that it's respectful. So one way that I think you can do this in a partnership is developing established times and structures to give and receive feedback, whether that be weekly team meetings or department meetings, one-on-ones with maybe it's me, the campus director, and my partner organizations director, meetings one-on-one with our staff that may be partnering in the classroom or partnering with scholars, so they have that clarity. Again, we work throughout the school day into after school. And so it's really important when I have campus teachers and volunteers that are coming into the space that my staff has communicated with them what our day has looked like, whether kids have been off the chain and running the hallways, or whether it's been a really subdued and calm day, because it's going to affect how they facilitate that space. Another simple step is just agreeing on your action plan. So how are we going to go about facilitating this? For us, we do 10-week apprenticeships. So we know our action plan starts at the very beginning of the year, where we're recruiting our volunteers. We're developing them professionally as far as what it means to be an educator, what it means to engage with middle schoolers, and what it means to be a partner in citizen schools. And so from that space forward, our action plan is just moving. From August, we're pairing people up. We're making sure, again, they're having those weekly team meetings so they can determine what the 10-week plan is going to look like. And throughout the 10 weeks, we're action planning still, and we're also adjusting. So the next slide, I'm going to talk to you about The pitfalls are inevitable. Again, conflict's inevitable. It's just how you go about engaging in it and how you go about rectifying it. The last step, and it's very aligned to everything that Ginswright said, it's very aligned to the Cassell wheel, is just creating an open environment of learners and an open environment where people feel as though they can be respected, they can be heard, and that the environment's rich with trust. People are feeling supported, people are feeling informed. I think that's another piece. You're not power hoarding in this space. You're making sure that information is distributed to everybody in an equitable manner. So that was a lot. And I apologize if I just kept going. Again, I'll make sure that you get all of this. The slide deck will be available for you. That was just 6 steps. I would argue that there could be more in developing a partnership. But again, it's just important to know that every step requires a lot of attention, a lot of detail, and just thorough processing. I think another theme within this conference is your ability to know yourself and to really honor yourself and what you know and do not know, areas for growth and strengths, right? And so you've really got to engage with that throughout this process as well. So I'm going to run quickly through our pitfalls so that we can get to our panel, because I think that's where you're really going to get to engage with people that have been a part of this process, have experiences in both the beauties and the ugliness of partnering. And so they can give you a lot more, I feel like, information that might be helpful. So the last thing is just potential pitfalls. So partnerships could compromise your cultural and organizational values. As mentioned on the last slide, it's imperative that prior to solidifying any partnership, you and a collaborating organization, corporation, individual have established a shared vision, beliefs, and goals. Because absent this prioritization, you may find that each of your organizations are centering on their own values and their own cultural norms, which may lead to like a loss of identity for you, a loss of power, a loss of autonomy. I'll just say that in all collaborative partnerships, it's extremely necessary for you to build a trusting foundation. That's been throughout everything that we've shown you today. In order for there to be effective and timely communication, you've got to trust one another. Even if it's just a minute bit of trust, you've got to be willing to know that a person has the same objective as you. They want a scholar to be successful. They want to see a scholar doing their best and learning. So another thing that I'll just say is that absent effective communication, tension arises, conflict arises, and that requires more time. That requires you to take steps back and to have to go through each of those steps again and see where you didn't plan accordingly. Lastly, I'll say once a partnership is solidified and has begun working in alliance with one another, you'll find that you're still going to need to do troubleshooting. Again, adjustment is always going to be necessary. Situations arise. For example, in March, none of us knew that we would be in shelter in place. So we had to adjust our partnerships. We had to adjust how we interacted with one another and adjust how we leveraged one another. So at this point, sorry, you all, I really wanted to get to that panel. So we finally made it to this space. I've got some awesome community partners, prior alum of Citizen Schools that have agreed to join us. So I am going to stop screen sharing and I'm going to do just a quick introduction of each of them. So you get some understanding of who's here and what their experience in this collaborating and innovating in partnerships has been. Okie dokie. So if you don't mind switching over to gallery mode, I think that might be helpful so you can see faces and be able to identify voices and who's actually talking. Our panelists here, and they might be on your top row, they might not, are Charlie Skidmore, who you've already been introduced to. So prior BPS principal, also a prior campus director with Citizen Schools in California in the South Bay. And now our professional development director with Citizen Schools. We have Malachi Jackson, who started at Tel High in March of 2020. He has a bachelor's in political science from the University of California, Berkeley, and he's worked in several nonprofits over the years, focusing on youth enrichment and empowerment. And for the last couple of years was based in the East Bay, working with citizen schools, and has a professional passion for providing underserved students with opportunities they may not otherwise have had. And I'm going to try to move quickly through these introductions because, again, I want you all to get the panel. We also have Amelia Vigil, who is a member of 18 Reasons. Her interest in food systems began at a young age on the cattle ranch where she grew up. This interest persisted throughout college, where she minored in global health and health policy, and has now found her passion for food service and community work by managing the partnerships at 18 Reasons, who you will hear from after this. We've got Jessica Faye-Salisi-Pon. I'm going to move quickly. Jessica Faye-Salisi-Pon is also a prior alum of Citizen School. She's worked in nonprofits for some years now, working with students from K through 8th grade. And after this, will be working as an English language teacher in Korea, after this being our pandemic. And lastly, we have Josh Rogers, who is a violence educator with Youth Alive in East Oakland. They have a partnership at Castlemont. He is also a prior alum of Citizen Schools at our New York region, an amazing partner, I think, an amazing add to our program. So I'm going to pass it off to them. I'm going to pop our questions that I have for them into the chat, but you all know the questions I've asked you, so feel free to just hop in. The first thing I'll say is, what do you feel is important, or do you feel it is important, rather, to partner with other community organizations, corporations, or individuals?
Yes.
Malachi, such a great thorough answer. And I'll also just ask, if so, why?
I think it's obviously so important because we can't do everything that students like need, require, and deserve. And I think you just have to center yourself on that fact that, like, as great as hard we work, we can't that a student needs from us. And so partnerships help us to bring different strengths, different talents. They're hugely important. And I think in any aspect of education, whether you're a teacher, after school, before school, whatever, partnerships are the way to go.
I would agree. I think partnerships are extremely important. I also think they're mutually beneficial, right? So meeting the needs of the students is centered, but I also think that, so from my experience, I work with an organization that provides programming for all different schools. We focus on cooking and nutrition. We also do it for health centers and all sorts of host sites. So we manage different types of partnerships. And because we cover so much ground, or our geographic area is pretty large in the Bay Area, it's really helpful to have partner sites who are experts in their own communities, so we can provide the curriculum support and benefit from those relationships that they've already established.
Awesome, thank you. So I popped the questions that we pre-populated into the chat. Feel free to take a look at them. But if you have any questions that you have for our panelists, please feel free to either vocalize them or pop them into the chat yourself. With that, I'll move on to our second question, which is, what has your experience with developing and or maintaining partnerships been? And what were some important areas of focus?
Cool. Awesome. I think I think what was already discussed is hugely, valuable. I think all I would is remember that partnerships are relationships. I think we in some good systems do we have. Janae's making a face, makes me look like being heard.
You're
just
a little.
Can people
You're
hear
a
me?
little.
All right, I'll stand right here and with the sun in my eyes. Awesome. I think focusing on the relationship part of partnerships is important. I think that we focus a lot on institutions and building strong institutions, and that's really valuable. But when you're working with someone, personal relationships are everything. People kind of getting along, liking each other, having a productive and positive space is hugely important. And that's the like the person to person work that can often go kind of unmentioned, because you can have great strong systems, but if everyone kind of hates each other and there's a lot of just negative energy, it won't be a productive space.
And I want to second that and say what one of the things that I find so important about the partnerships, particularly my experience in Boston before Citizen Schools was also with career partnerships, is just the connection that students make in terms of what they're learning in school to the various careers or activities that they become a part of through these partnerships. I just see it over and over again, and at the middle school, being involved in the after school even more. I've had so many kids say to me, oh, that's why we're learning this math, or oh, that's why I have to write. So making, school does this amazing job of compartmentalizing the knowledge, making it seem like you're doing it just for the teacher, just for the grade or whatever. And I do think partnerships do exactly the opposite, do that best of saying, you're doing it for you. This is how you're applying all of this. And most kids don't see that. They need something like a partnership to actualize the school knowledge to real life.
I just wanted to ask and sort of piggyback off of the talk about building relationships, but specifically even I work for a nonprofit and we try to partner with schools. And since they don't know who we are, those partnerships and personal relationships are really hard to build, especially in this time, because we know principals are busy, teachers are busy, they're just getting their feet on the ground. And so kind of wanted to hear from everyone, what is an effective way to build new relationships in this current time? And how can we, give the best of what we want to provide without, feeling like we're taking too much of your time also, as like people are trying to like get their organized and trying to build relationships.
I can hop in here. I think for me, when I think of the times that I've gone about building new relationships, I've tried to do some researching into like what that partnership is lacking, or what that schoolhouse is lacking, not in a deficit-based way, but like how can I build out my programming or what I'm going to bring to the table around that, and make myself something that you can leverage, make myself a resource. I think outside of that, in a schoolhouse, I also know like a principal is not the person I'm going to first, because they have everybody going to them and they are like way too spread thin, especially in virtual learning. So I think I'm a little bit extra sometimes when building partnerships, but I think it has worked. I'll do just like a deep dive on the website, look at everybody's emails and just do like a BCC email blast out to people. Like, this is the program we have. This is how we could benefit your students. Like, this is all of the structure that we've already kind of pre-thought out. That way, like most of the work is done and it's just like, all right, if you want me to pop in at 9 a.m., I can do that. Or if you want me to pop in here, just so they feel like I don't have to be the brunt of planning this out. I don't have to be the person that's like, all right, I want you to do X, Y, Z. You've already said you can handle A through Y. And all I have to do is give you the Z, right? So I think I wouldn't start at the top. I definitely start at people that are like really infused in everyday happenings in the school, right? Not to say that a principal is not infused in that, but they just have like the umbrella of like, I've got to get all of these tasks done and deliverables done. So that I would say definitely trying to tap teachers, trying to tap like family and community coordinators. I think also academic counselors are people that oftentimes go overlooked, and they're like tapped into every single aspect of a kid's academic learning. So I'll stop talking now. That's what I would say.
No, I would agree. I think so. I similarly, I started my new job as soon as this pandemic hit, and so I had to like hire a bunch to start this whole program. And I didn't get to meet anyone in person. So I didn't get to meet any of my students, any of the teachers and whatnot. And the thing I found was just get involved as possible. So like any meeting, anything that they were like, we are doing this, your boy was there. And the thing about being virtual is you have the time, right? It's like a stupid staff meeting. Sorry, that's like not really relevant to me. I like just sit in that space, have it real low, and then when it's done, be like, hey guys, remember so they get to see you, they get to see the name, they get to see the face. I think it takes flexibility on our part, like being able to step out of like the bounds of like what we normally do. I think really centering on finding out who are like the unofficial hubs of the school. I think that's what Janae was getting at. Every school has, maybe it's a teacher, maybe it's a guidance counselor, but they have people who are just like on it, know everything, know everyone. And those are the people that you want to kind of find who they are. And they usually announce themselves. Like if you get on the email chains, those are the people sending all the emails. Those are the people setting up like the game nights. And so when you recognize like, oh, this person is like setting up all of the game nights, then you
I think we lost him. He must have been tapping into that staff meeting. No, just kidding.
Such a great
Also,
quote, too.
oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Amelia.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to be flexible with your offerings as well as a nonprofit. So we specifically do hands-on cooking, right? And so that means that we were going to different sites, we were bringing all of the groceries, cooking together, and obviously that's not possible now, right? And so especially in this time, making sure that you're flexible with what you have to offer and can adapt to the needs of whatever site you hope to partner with. So communicating and establishing those lines of communication, but not being so much like, take it or leave it, this is what we do, but being like, these are the skills we have, how can we leverage those in your setting?
Awesome. I want to just open up some space for Josh, Jessica Faye, if you have any pieces of wisdom, experiences that you feel like our participants could learn from. I'd love to hear from you all.
Definitely, just to even piggyback off of what Amelia was saying, you know, it's so important to just build basically a family unit around the kids and people that we're working with, just simply because it takes a village. You know, I hate to use such a cliche, you know, saying, but it's the truth. It really does take a village to help raise these young people that we work with. So, you know, definitely getting in contact with, you know, the people that are definitely tapped into the school, tapped into the community it's a must, you know, and they're very easy to find usually at these schools because they make themselves available. They literally make it, you know, their job to be available to anybody who wants to tap in with them. So, you know, that's definitely, you know, invaluable resource.
For me, it's also just like being there, constantly showing up to all the meetings, to all the classes. One thing I've noticed, because I'm always watching over my nephew's classes, one thing they enjoy is always like knowing that it's gonna be like there's the structure to everything. Like definitely for one of the things the students are looking for are the structures, and also like knowing who's gonna be there, like knowing who that person is, and if someone is gonna will be like, if there's going to be like a substitute, the teachers always make sure to let the students know ahead of time. So communication and just always being there.
Awesome. So we've got about 10 minutes left. I want to just again open the space. Any participants, if you have any questions. If not, I'm going to ask our volunteers just one last question. And it's around just how you've navigated miscommunication or other pitfalls in your partnerships. What have been the steps that you've taken? yeah, just how have you navigated that?
So for me, I'm the type of person who I love to make sure that people understand, overstand, and understand me. So, you know, for me, especially with partnerships, I like to figure out what people's communication style is. You know, some people, they work better talking over the phone. Some people, you know, work better sending just a text message, or even just sending an email, or just sending a whole, you know, layout of, you know, what the day is going to look like, whether it be via PowerPoint or Google Slides or what have you. So I feel like really the best way to navigate a lot of those, you know, miscommunication steps is really figure out like really what are people's communication styles. I not only believe that with just our partnerships, I believe that with our students. You know, if you're teaching a kid the wrong way, they can be very smart, but they're not going to actually, the information is not going to register to them the right way. So that's just really my 2 cents.
Janae, I would say in terms of a CT pairing, very often I've had to kind of like say, it always goes back to the students. And, you know, we're always talking about having students thrive. I was working as a peer, a co-teacher with Scratch programming. And the CT that I have, a wonderful guy, but he only wanted to kind of teach the Scratch programming. And I knew from watching the first couple of classes that we needed some literacy activities to go with it. The students couldn't read the code. They didn't know enough. They didn't know the instructions that he was giving to be able to effectively do the code. And so we went back and forth about it. I think this particular CT had some other times where he felt like he was almost being overshadowed in the classroom. So we worked through that I wasn't trying to take his teaching duties away around Scratch. I understood that because I didn't know how to teach Scratch, but I knew when I could see kids who didn't have the vocabulary that they needed, that if he would just give me the first 10 minutes of class to do a little vocabulary work, we could then proceed. So I think putting that students first, being very clear that when you are asking the content expert to do something different, it's not because you're trying to take the spotlight, it's because you're kind of advocating for the students in the classroom.
And I think this kind of harkens back to the importance of a very clearly defined shared vision, right? Because if you have a shared vision and you have like common goals that you've established from the outset, then you can kind of always fall back on those. So even if there's a miscommunication or, you know, certain approaches are diverging, you can come back to that convergent point of, you know, the goals that were mutually established at the beginning of the relationship.
I think being willing to question like yourself, being willing to question like the premise of like what you're asking for. I had a CT, Brooke, who was amazing and super busy and super intelligent, and she just didn't respond to emails. She just did not. She just wasn't going to do that. And like at first I was deeply frustrated, like, chick, you get these emails, you can respond. And then I was like, do I really need her to respond, right? Working around her, like talking to her in person worked, it was fine. And so figuring out that like, I didn't actually need her to respond. Like I wanted her to respond. It felt important to me, but I could talk to her when she got there in person and we could still like figure out all the information and be set up for classes. And just, I had to be willing to say, oh, right, there's this expectation that I'm holding that's actually not necessary to what we're here to do. And I can be the person to be flexible and say, cool, you're not going to be responding when you're not here. And I can still do my job and have things set up and you can still come in and you do your spiel and it be beneficial to kids. And I just had to let go of that expectation that she was going to respond to my emails.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. I just want to take a moment to thank the amazing members of this panel. I'll just say that I don't know how it happened. Well, it kind of happened intentionally, but Jessica Faye and Amelia have had an amazing partnership in the past. They went through distance learning and readjusted together. Same with Josh and Malachi. I think their classes that they led together in person were amazing, and needed to adjust when we got to the virtual learning space. And then both of these community organizations, Youth Alive, 18 Reasons, have been long-standing partners with Citizen Schools. But we've seen some institutional knowledge shifts. We've seen hiring shifts, right? And despite all of that, we've still been able to maintain a really quality partnership where I could ask them to hop on this call and be a part of this panel and just be like, please, you all, I really need you. But they saw it, like there was a mutual benefit to it, right? And so I think that just being willing to extend yourself, as a lot of individuals have said here, like really take a look inside of yourself and be willing to adjust as necessary in order to make a really collaborative and a really like effective partnership. So with that, I'm actually not going to, I'm not going to screen share. I'll just ask that if you have any questions, any clarifications, that you're popping those in the chat, and that you are also popping any learnings or takeaways. We at Citizen Schools call them teachbacks. So something you've learned throughout the day that you want to teach back to somebody else. If you are interested in getting the resources that we ran through today, they're linked on the app that we're utilizing for the conference. So I actually linked the Google Drive. So throughout today and tomorrow, I'll be just dumping in a bunch more resources that will help you with partnership development. But again, I'll also just put my email if you have any questions. I really love developing new partnerships. I think it's super fun. It's very challenging, but I think that our scholars deserve it. I think our communities deserve it. There's no way that we could do every single thing we want to get accomplished by ourselves. So just being willing to wrap around and, like Josh said, be a village. So really appreciate you all for joining.
Janae, could you send me the resources? You've not sent me 0 resources.
Yes, I'll send you a resource.
You know, I love to send my staff things that other people have worked on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you all. And I'll leave the session acknowledging that, it's going to might be a rough week. So please just take the time that you need, the space that you need, and don't feel pressured by society and by all of the work that we've got to get done to not take space for yourself and reflect and make sure that you're taking care of yourself and your family and friends. Awesome.
Hey, Jessica, thanks. Good to
Thanks,
see
Janaea.
you. I didn't
Thanks,
know you were
everybody.
live. I was so afraid.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, y'all. Peace.
How you been?
I'm good, I guess.
Are you working? Or are you just chilling at your house? We're just gonna